If you have geese problems, Stop the Drop is the eco-friendly solution for moving your unwanted geese. We're going to go over some instructions and tips to help you take back your turf with Flight Control Plus and Stop the Drop. Stop the Drop is an advanced goose repellent technology. Archeon Life Sciences worked with the USDA Wildlife Services to search for a goose control product that would be long-lasting and weatherproof. It withstands rain, snow, and sleet. One that is odorless and virtually undetectable by people. One that works without harming humans, wildlife, vegetation, or water. Stop the Drop is people, pet, and eco-friendly. One that is persistent, it works 24/7, but most importantly, one that would effectively modify the goose habitat and behavior. Let's briefly describe how Stop the Drop works. First is the visual warning. Stop the Drop absorbs light in the UV spectrum. The geese can see it on the grass, even though you and I cannot. The geese can tell the difference between turf treated with Stop the Drop and turf that is untreated. Second is an anti-feeding warning. Once the geese have sampled the turf treated with Stop the Drop, they experience a strong but harmless digestive irritation. It would be the equivalent of you and I getting heartburn after a meal. The geese quickly learn not to feed on the grass treated with Stop the Drop, and they are forced to find another site to feed. Unlike other methods of repelling geese, Stop the Drop takes away the goose's two basic needs, food and safety. The visual threat of seeing Stop the Drop on the turf, plus the digestive consequence, equals a learned behavior modification. That's why Stop the Drop is truly the only effective method of repelling Canada geese. To determine where on your property to make the application, you'll first need to observe the area and define the drop zone. The drop zone is defined as the active feeding area, and it will be well marked with goose droppings. You always want to treat the entire drop zone and a little bit of the area just beyond it. If there's an area of your property without goose droppings, you probably won't need to treat that area. Geese are fairly specific to where they like to roost and feed, and this area is always well defined with goose droppings. Next, you will need to measure the area that you'll be treating. In this example here, we will be treating the entire drop zone and a little bit of the area just beyond it. Knowing the measurement of the area you're treating will help you properly mix your tank with water and the right amount of Stop the Drop. Once you've measured the area that you'll be treating, you'll need to mix Stop the Drop in your sprayer with water. To cover 1,000 square feet, there are two different rates that we use to get the best results with Stop the Drop. The first is our full rate, which is 1 gallon per acre, which is the equivalent of 6 ounces of Stop the Drop mixed with 1 gallon of water in your sprayer. This is the rate that we use for the first application of the year and also for the last. All applications in between can be done at our half rate, a half gallon per acre, which is 3 ounces of Stop the Drop mixed with 1 gallon of water. Let's review some seasonal treatment strategies for using Stop the Drop to get the best results for repelling your geese. Depending on the timing of your applications and your geographical area, some of these tips may vary slightly. But in early spring, we define as late February to early May, you'll need to treat your area anywhere from 2 to 3 times. For the first application of the year, you always want to go at the 1 gallon per acre rate. Any treatments after that can go at the half gallon per acre rate. It's during this time in the early spring that the geese are beginning to search for nesting sites. The number one goal is to prevent the geese from nesting on your property. If you can prevent them from nesting, your bird pressure throughout the rest of the year will be reduced greatly. If you are successful in preventing the nesting of the geese in the spring, no treatment may be necessary in the summer months. Geese cannot fly during molt when they lose their flight feathers, and the adult geese will not leave the area until their goslings have learned to fly. So if they haven't nested on your property, they probably won't travel there to start feeding in the summer. If you weren't successful in preventing the nesting, or if you're beginning your treatments at this time, treat the high traffic areas as needed, usually about 4 weeks apart, at the half gallon per acre rate. From the early part of the fall through the beginning of winter, you will need to treat your property a total of 2 to 3 times. Even if you prevented the geese from nesting in the spring and you experience little to no bird pressure in the summer months, this is the time of year when the geese are pond hopping and looking for a place to spend their winter. The final application of the year should be made after the grass has gone dormant and has stopped growing. Because Stop the Drop is only removed from the grass by cutting it off with a lawnmower, this final application will last all winter through the rain, snow, and sleet, and the final application should be done at the full rate, 1 gallon per acre. This application will prevent both the residential and the migratory geese from using your property. If you can prevent them from spending the winter on your property, you will greatly increase your chances at preventing them from nesting in the spring. Let's review some tips to get the best results from your application of Stop the Drop. First, you should mow the grass and remove any heavy clippings, feces, leaves, or other debris before applying. If possible, delay the next mowing of your grass to maximize the goose's exposure. Never apply Stop the Drop to any wet turf or grass that has any dew, frost, or snow on it. Do not apply 3 hours prior to a rainfall or an irrigation cycle. When using your sprayer, only use a fan tip nozzle. We are trying to create the smallest possible droplet for Stop the Drop. We are looking to get a fine mist that covers the turf entirely and evenly. Do not apply in windy conditions to avoid drift onto unwanted surfaces. We don't want Stop the Drop to get on any cars, walkways, or decks. Be sure to agitate your mix completely and thoroughly in your sprayer. You should always empty, rinse, and clean your sprayer after each use. Lastly, do not walk through and keep any people or pets off of the sprayed area until it has had a chance to completely dry. We don't want to remove the product from the turf by walking it off or knocking it off the turf before it has dried. You should always apply Stop the Drop at 1 gallon per acre for the first and last applications of the year. All applications in between can be reduced at our half gallon per acre rate. You should always review the safety data sheet and wear the proper protective equipment before applying. Let's review what you can expect after your application of Stop the Drop. As the geese sample the treated turf, the conditioning process begins. It usually takes about 45 minutes for the geese to digest the turf. Eating the treated grass will cause them to experience a digestive irritation. The geese will typically react by shaking their heads, honking, and heading towards water and drinking it. Because the geese can see Stop the Drop on the turf, they can tell the difference between treated and untreated turf. They quickly learn to stop feeding on the treated turf, and they learn that the visual threat comes with a digestive consequence. Without the ability to feed, the goose is forced to find an alternative feeding area. The entire flock will need to sample the treated area, and the entire conditioning process usually takes up to 3 days. Stop the Drop is the solution to your geese problems. When applied correctly and under the right conditions, Stop the Drop is 100% effective at moving and repelling unwanted geese. For any questions or for more information, you can give us a call at 1-877-55-GEESE. Send us an email at info@flightcontrol.com, or you can visit our website, flightcontrol.com. You can click on the links below to follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook for news, updates, and tips about our products. Thank you for your time. We look forward to helping you take back your turf with Stop the Drop.